A Chinese company just built a laptop that runs for 21 hours straight without charging. It doesn't use Windows, it doesn't use Mac OS, and honestly, every tech giant in Silicon Valley is now scrambling to catch up. This is the Huawei story nobody saw coming. December 11th, 2025. Huawei walks into a press conference and drops a bombshell that makes every laptop manufacturer in the world stop what they're doing. The HM740, their first ever HarmonyOS laptop. And it's packing a battery that delivers 21 hours of continuous video playback. 21 hours. That's Monday morning to Tuesday afternoon without seeing a charger. Apple's M4 MacBook? Left in the dust. Every Windows laptop on the market? Not even close. But here's what nobody saw coming. This machine isn't running Windows. It's not Mac OS. This is HarmonyOS, a completely independent operating system that didn't even exist 6 years ago. And if you think this is just another Chinese company trying to copy Western tech, you need to hear what happened next. Because the story behind this laptop is absolutely insane. Let's talk about what Huawei actually built. The HM740 weighs just 1.32 kilograms, lighter than your lunch. It's 14.5 millimeters thin. You could slide this thing under a closed door. But Huawei didn't sacrifice power for portability. This laptop has a 14.2-inch OLED display with 2.8K resolution, 120 Hz refresh rate, and it covers 100% of the sRGB and P3 color gamuts. For professionals spending 12-hour days staring at screens, this display earned Germany's TÜV Rheinland Eye Comfort Certificate. And it's not just a screen, it's a touchscreen that supports the Huawei M Pencil with air gesture control. You can sketch during video calls, annotate documents, or control presentations with hand movements. Now let me hit you with the performance numbers, because these are genuinely jaw-dropping. The HM740 can decompress 2.5 gigabytes in 2.7 seconds. Compress that same amount, 9.8 seconds. Think about that. While your colleague's laptop is still processing a file download, you've already extracted it, reviewed it, and moved on. These seconds add up throughout your workday, turning stolen minutes into recovered hours. According to the China Software Testing Center, a 1 gigabyte PowerPoint file opens in 1 second, compared to 3 to 5 seconds on Windows. The OS boots 32% faster than Windows 11 and uses 29% less memory during multitasking. But let's get back to that battery, because this is where things get ridiculous. 70 watt-hours delivering 21 hours of local video playback and 15 hours of voice calls. When was the last time you used any laptop that could genuinely last from Monday morning to Tuesday afternoon without a charger? The HM740 has even surpassed Apple's M4 MacBook in endurance tests. Huawei also added something called a super privacy switch that physically disconnects the camera, microphone, and all sensors with one click. In an era where privacy violations make headlines constantly, having physical control over your device's sensors isn't paranoia, it's basic digital security. The connectivity is where Huawei threw down the gauntlet. 3-antenna Wi-Fi 7 system that achieves stable connections over 420 meters in open spaces. That's longer than 4 football fields. You could sit in your backyard and maintain rock-solid connectivity to your router inside the house. There's also Nearlink, a feature that lets your laptop continue broadcasting signals even when it's turned off. Your laptop is in your bag, powered down, yet colleagues can still discover it for quick file transfers. The HarmonyOS AI assistant can generate comprehensive research reports in 20 minutes, work that would traditionally take hours. And here's something brilliant: dual digital spaces. You can swap between personal and work environments with a 4-finger swipe. Your personal files and browsing history exist in a completely separate universe from your corporate data. 4 fingers, 1 swipe, total isolation. Now here's where this story gets truly extraordinary. Rewind to May 2019. The Trump administration dropped what everyone called a nuclear bomb on Huawei. Overnight, the company lost access to Google's Android operating system and all its services. Tech analysts worldwide wrote Huawei's obituary. One Silicon Valley investor said they'd be dead within 2 years. Another claimed no company can survive without Google's ecosystem. The logic made perfect sense. How do you sell smartphones without the apps people actually use? They were all catastrophically wrong. Instead of crumbling, Huawei mobilized over 10,000 engineers and invested in 2,700 patents to build their own operating system from scratch. They called it HarmonyOS. By early 2025, it's running on 1 billion active devices. In Q4 2024, HarmonyOS captured 19% of China's smartphone market, officially overtaking Apple's iOS at 17%. By Q2 2025, HarmonyOS maintains 17% market share, consistently outperforming iOS for 6 consecutive quarters. The revenue numbers are staggering. In 2024 alone, Huawei's revenue surged past $118 billion, a 22% jump from the previous year. This isn't just recovery. This is their fastest growth rate in nearly a decade. In China's smartphone market, Huawei rocketed from 4th place to 2nd, with shipments exploding by 37%, while Apple's sales dropped 17% in the same period. When the MateBook Pro and MateBook Fold launched in May 2025, they became the world's first personal computers running entirely on HarmonyOS. The app ecosystem exploded from 1,000 applications at launch to over 80,000 by September 2025. Major Chinese platforms are fully optimized. WPS Office, rebuilt from 40 million lines of code specifically for HarmonyOS, WeChat, Bilibili, Douyin, DingTalk. Huawei's app gallery now serves 580 million monthly active users. But let's be honest about the limitations. Adobe Creative Suite, Microsoft Office, Zoom, AutoCAD, most international enterprise software remains unavailable. Windows still supports over 660,000 applications. For Chinese users doing standard productivity work, HarmonyOS is completely viable. For international professionals dependent on Western software, ecosystem gaps remain. But Huawei didn't stop at laptops and operating systems. They solved something everyone thought was impossible. Picture this. You're hiking deep in a national park, miles from any cell tower. Someone gets injured. You pull out your phone and see no service. 5 years ago, that meant you were completely screwed. Today, if you have a Huawei Mate 70, you just send a message directly to a satellite 550 kilometers above your head, and emergency services arrive within hours. No special equipment, no bulky antenna, just your phone. While Apple and Samsung were fighting over who has faster 5G, Huawei quietly solved one of mobile technology's biggest problems. In November 2024, they launched the Mate 70 series with direct satellite communication. This isn't emergency text only like Apple's SOS feature. This is real two-way communication. Voice calls, text messages, even picture messages. The phone connects to China's Tiantong satellite network in just 9 seconds. Once connected, the delay is only 0.7 seconds, faster than many international phone calls. Compare this to Apple. Apple's emergency SOS via satellite works in 18 countries, but you can only send emergency messages. You can't make calls. You can't text friends. You can't share photos. It's purely for dire emergencies. Huawei's system lets you do everything: full satellite calls, regular messaging, picture sharing, with no restrictions. Now here's where the economics get stunning. American telecom carriers poured over $100 billion into traditional 5G networks. Verizon spent $45 billion just on spectrum licenses. AT&T invested another $23 billion in infrastructure. All that money just to cover major cities and highways. Huawei's entire satellite constellation reportedly cost around $8 billion to deploy. One satellite covers an area the size of Texas. The entire constellation blankets the planet. China achieved global coverage for less than what America spent on partial 5G rollout in major cities. The geopolitical implications are massive. In January 2025, Pentagon officials held emergency meetings to discuss how American military communications could be outflanked by Chinese satellite networks. The U.S. Space Force is racing to catch up, but internal assessments suggest they're at least 5 years behind. In March 2025, when devastating floods hit Southeast Asia and cellular towers went underwater, rescue teams used Mate 70 phones to coordinate evacuations and guide helicopter rescues. While Western solutions remained earthbound, Huawei's technology was saving lives. In February 2025, Kenya announced a partnership with Huawei to provide nationwide satellite coverage instead of building traditional cellular networks. Estimated savings: over $12 billion in infrastructure costs. A dozen other African nations are considering similar moves. This is how technology reshapes global power dynamics. Countries that could never afford first-world telecom infrastructure can now skip straight to satellite connectivity. But wait, because this story gets even more insane. October 2025. A research team at Peking University published something in Nature Electronics that made every chip engineer in Silicon Valley stop and stare in disbelief. They built an analog computing chip that processes calculations 1,000 times faster than NVIDIA's H100 GPU while consuming 100 times less power. And here's the kicker. They built it using older 7-nanometer technology that the US never bothered to sanction because everyone assumed it was too primitive to matter. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the man who built a $3 trillion empire selling GPUs, stood on stage at the Financial Times AI Summit and said something nobody expected: China is going to win the AI race. Not might win, will win. When the person who literally powers almost every major AI model today tells you his own technology is approaching obsolescence, you need to pay attention. For the past century, we've been doing computing wrong. Every computer operates on digital computing, ones and zeros. Your processor does calculations in one location while your data sits somewhere else. Every operation requires data to travel back and forth. This is called the von Neumann bottleneck. Chinese researchers just solved it. Their chip uses resistive random access memory cells that store information as different resistance levels. Each cell can hold not just 2 states like digital memory, but hundreds of different values. When you need to do a calculation, the chip doesn't move data anywhere. The memory cell itself becomes the processor. Thousands of calculations happen simultaneously in the same physical space where data lives. They achieved 100,000 times more accuracy than any analog computer ever built. They tested it on neural network training, the math behind AI. Results: 1,000 times the speed of NVIDIA's H100, 100 times better energy efficiency. This isn't theoretical. They manufactured this chip using commercial production processes that exist right now in Chinese facilities. Here's the geopolitics. Since 2022, the US has blocked China from buying advanced GPUs. The entire strategy assumed that without American chips, China couldn't keep up in AI. But sanctions backfire. When you cut someone off from technology, you don't make them give up. You make them innovate around you. Look at Huawei. The US put them on the entity list in 2019. Everyone predicted collapse. Instead, they developed their own OS, manufactured their own chips, and increased their global market share. While American companies spent billions refining GPU architecture, making transistors smaller and faster, Chinese researchers asked a different question. What if we're solving the wrong problem? So let's zoom out, because this isn't really about laptops, or phones, or chips. This is about what happens when you tell someone they can't have something they need to survive. In May 2019, the US government thought they were delivering a death blow to Huawei. Cut them off from Android, from Google services, from advanced semiconductors, and watch them collapse. 6 years later, Huawei is thriving. They built an OS running on 1 billion devices. They created laptops that outlast anything from Apple or Microsoft. They put satellite connectivity in regular smartphones. They're pioneering computing architecture that could make current AI chips obsolete. The sanctions didn't destroy Huawei. They removed any reason for Huawei to play by someone else's rules. 900 million people are using smartphones without Google. Businesses across Asia are moving to cloud services that don't route through American servers. Countries in Africa and Southeast Asia are choosing satellite coverage over traditional cell towers. The technology world is fragmenting into separate ecosystems, and the assumption that everyone must eventually adopt Western standards is collapsing in real time. Here's the question we should all be asking. In 10 years, will the world run on American technology that others are allowed to access, or on parallel systems built specifically to operate independently of American control? Because based on everything Huawei accomplished in just 6 years under the harshest conditions imaginable, that answer is no longer obvious. The HM740 laptop with its 21-hour battery life isn't just an impressive piece of engineering, it's a symbol of something much bigger. It represents what happens when you underestimate determination, when you assume cutting off access means victory, when you forget that necessity is the mother of invention. Huawei was supposed to be dead by 2021. Instead, they're defining what technology looks like in 2025 and beyond. The real race isn't about who builds the longest-lasting battery or the fastest chip. It's about who defines what technology looks like in the future, and whether that future is controlled by one power or genuinely distributed across many. And right now, that race is far from over.